everyone, this is Charlotte Palmer here on the Mothership Connected podcast, and I'm here with Nicola and Alison from the Enfield Extinction Rebellion support group. Is that right?
We're just the Extinction Rebellion local group. Yeah.
They're a local group from the Extinction Rebellion group for Enfield. Now, Enfield is in North London, and you're out here on a Saturday in Enfield town, very busy shopping street.
Yeah.
So doing your thing around the incinerators. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes,
yeah?
Certainly.
Great.
We're here to promote Extinction Rebellion and the issues around climate change, but in North London a key issue is the Enfield incinerator. We happen to have an incinerator on the North Circular that takes a lot of our rubbish at the moment. It's coming to the end of its natural life, if it has a natural life, and but the plan is to actually expand it, which contradicts issues around government policy and the climate emergency. It's planned to double in size, which means that it will go to, I think it's 700,000 tonnes of CO2 by the time it's fully active, which is actually going to break all our climate targets. And it's interesting the way it's being sold. At the moment, they don't sort the rubbish when it gets there. A lot of things that people think are being recycled are not being recycled, they're being burnt.
Wow.
And it's been proven across the country that there are other ways to deal with your rubbish.
Okay.
We should be looking at reducing, reusing, recycling and reusing. And it's been proven across the country that where you have an incinerator, recycling rates are low. There isn't an incentive to teach people to recycle. And in fact, some of the publicity around the Enfield incinerator has gone for the fact that you can use the burning of rubbish to create heat, and they're tying that into some new housing estate. So they're saying this is a good thing. And they're also using the experience of Scandinavia and Germany where that's happened. But in fact, I read even today that Scandinavia and Germany are turning away from that because they recognise the problems that come with burning. And the problems aren't just CO2, that is the key one, of course, for us, but it's also air pollution. And we now know a lot more about how bad air pollution is, and in fact that we're raining microplastics as we speak. And the Enfield North London Waste Authority claim that they will have enough filtration to deal with that, but in fact you cannot filtrate for the smallest particulates, so they're still going to rain down, only even more. By expanding it, they say you need to grow it, but if you recycle properly you wouldn't have to grow it. They're going to have to ship in waste from other boroughs, Islington, Barnet, and
which they do already.
They do.
So it is for the 7 North London boroughs, but they will. The capacity that they're suggesting is so large that they will have to bring in rubbish apart from those 7 London boroughs from elsewhere to keep it running 24/7, which is what they envisage doing.
Right.
And we don't need the capacity that they have suggested, which, as you said, was 700,000 tonnes.
And that means there's transport implications for that, because you've got to have the lorries bringing in the rubbish. They've already proven that part of the North Circular is breaking all the rules on air pollution anyway.
Wow. Okay. So obviously there are a lot of environmental impacts, and it's obviously a toxic process.
Yes.
And there are alternative ways of doing things, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, they in some industry experts predict that actually the demand for burning is going to fall. But if you're expanding the incinerator, you're artificially stimulating the demand.
Why are they doing that, do you think?
They're doing it because it's perceived to be better than landfill.
Right.
Modern takes on landfill is that if you landfill properly and sort your rubbish, then you can landfill in a way that you might be able to retrieve the plastic and reuse it when the technology is there.
Yeah.
You've got to reduce, otherwise it's not going to work.
Yes.
I believe you correct me if I'm wrong, but there's also a financial factor where other boroughs will pay Enfield to take the rubbish. Is that right?
They will. The whole project is going to cost £1.2 billion, which will be paid for by the taxpayer. And that's another big issue, because originally they said it would be 650 million, which was already bad enough, but under pressure they've now agreed that in fact it is 1.2 billion pounds, and that is a huge amount of money for taxpayers in the 7 North London boroughs to have to pay.
It's probably a financial reason coming from central government, but I do know that nationally there have been successful campaigns to stop new incinerators. The Mayor of London is against incineration.
Can't edit that out, I'm afraid. But you can cut and paste, you know? If you stop and then you start again, that's easier. Stop.
The Mayor of London is against incineration. He doesn't want to. Yes, he is.
Well, that's good to know.
It is good to know, except that he's passed this particular decision because he's placing it at the hands of the previous incumbent, Boris Johnson.
Right.
So, because I think it's quite hard for him to change it. But this week he was saying how he wanted to be seen as a Green, in his new candidacy for the future, being future mayor.
That's very reassuring.
One of the issues that I'd like to see him is to review this particular decision.
Absolutely. And he has rejected a new proposal in Bexley where they were going to have a new incinerator there, and he totally rejected that on green grounds. So it's extraordinary that he's still backing this one.
I think it's down to political expediency and how hard something looks to do, to be honest. Well, that's gut feeling.
Well, Enfield Council, I mean, there's so much I can say about them.
Yeah, well, I don't know enough about Enfield Council, I suppose.
Right.
I know there's divisions and so on.
Yes.
But I just see this as a big PR job by North London Waste Authority, who are there as a business trying to make money.
Well, that's the bottom line, isn't it? What you say?
They've probably greenwashed the whole thing to councillors. Actually, I've had a councillor. I had got an online conversation with a councillor who said, "But what about the heat generation?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Do you want a trade-off? Would you trade your heating for ill health and a shorter lifespan?" Because basically that's what they're talking about.
Yes.
And that is what happens in our children as well.
Sure.
As we know that particulates affect lung development. So
Right.
you're talking about our children.
So in essence, let's give our listeners and our watchers a kind of lowdown on the kind of the 5 sort of impacts of this incinerator if it comes through. The health and environmental impacts.
Breaking the climate, breaking the emissions targets.
Okay.
You can't. We've already got ridiculous emissions targets. If things are going to be critical by 2030, why talk about 2050? I mean, it's absolutely bonkers. That's why XR exists.
Yeah.
So and this will double our emissions as a borough.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yep.
There's that. There's pollution through microplastics.
Okay.
There's transport. There's cost to the taxpayer.
Okay.
That's kind of summarising it,
Yep,
I think.
that's good.
Yeah.
Don't you think they should just... I know it sounds like a simplistic response, but we've got to... I mean, they've actually banned plastic in 5 countries so far. It's illegal to bring plastic bags into Kenya.
Yes, yeah.
Why can't we do that here?
Well, it's easier in Kenya because per capita their plastic consumption will be a lot less than
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I've
Italy
had a lot
as
of
well.
conversations about things that land up in African plastic rivers is actually our plastic.
Yes.
It's a cultural thing, and you've really, part of XR existence is that you've got to treat this like a war.
Yes.
And if you treat it like a war, you have a home front.
Right.
We need, a government that takes it on board like a home front, and that means educating people about why they're being asked not to have plastic bags, or why, and placing taxation on things like fuel, fuel for aircraft.
Yeah.
And a culture change so that people don't go on quiz shows and say they're going to spend their money on a flight, because when they win,
agree.
or at least know that when they say that, actually that's not actually a cool thing to do. I suppose.
We do need to change our mindsets about consumption.
And everybody's included. I mean, I grew up like this in the 60s and 70s, and I bought plastic bottles in plastic water.
Well, we all did.
Bottles. We all
did.
Yeah,
totally.
Absolutely.
Until we woke up.
One of the big things you can do, of course, is change your diet, because maintaining the dairy industry and the meat industry, we're buying all this soya and doing all the deforestation in places like the Amazon so that they can have more soya feed for animals. Yeah.
Well, I think food's always about context. I'm a food specialist, and I'm you know, I've got some very interesting views around that. Was actually talking to Lieber about it. We had a big discussion about food on the back end of it.
Oh, right,
but there are bigger issues with soil erosion, and the corporates being interested in pushing everybody, a big corporate push towards veganism, which is quite worrying.
Yes,
and monocultures and stuff, monocrops.
I'm not sort of saying that eating animals is wrong, I'm not.
No.
But what I do think, we've lost the ethical plot.
Oh, definitely we have.
Because I don't eat meat, but because I can't stand tortured chicken, basically.
Yes, sure.
This idea that chicken is somehow better for you.
Yes, well, they need to stop making things illegal, you know. I know it sounds a bit extreme, but they've got to just say factory farming out. Just don't even go there.
Yesterday, because I was getting information together for this stall. I'm not usually this. I was reading information yesterday. It's not so much about how far your food has come, but what it is that you're eating.
Yes.
And then you have to really bear in mind where the production has been.
Absolutely.
There's no point in having a tomato that's been under glass from the UK and used up more CO2 than if you bought something that had come from Spain because it's in season. So but again, we were talking about what's going to make the difference. I think it's a cultural difference that has to come from central government. Because they've got to lead on the home front.
Well, currently our current government hasn't got the greatest how can I say?
Current
track record of green.
No, they've got no
green promises.
They're all
absolutely none. Actually,
Another article I was reading
worrying
about how they're hypocritical over the trade talks, because they just agreed all these African trade deals with people where money goes essentially into fossil fuel industry in Africa. So they say at one hand that they're being greener and we're cutting down here, but they don't have an eye on what it actually means. What it actually means.
It is interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
And if he wants to be like Churchill,
which he could never be.
This is his issue. This is his chance to lead a country properly on an issue where there's a war going on. Yeah,
absolutely.
And a battlefront that says that if we don't do something by 2030, we will lose.
Absolutely.
Right? Not 2050. Yes, because Boris wants to be Churchill. He can be like Churchill, but to do that, he's got to tell people that it's going to be tough. You know, but tough but fun, I would say. I mean, we always come across so grim. It doesn't have to be grim.
No,
I want to see, if people aren't allowed to fly, I want to see what they are allowed to do in their communities that's fun.
Sure. Well, I don't see any evidence at the moment that the Tory party have got any inclination towards
the Tory party are just obsessed with Brexit.
The environment
Brexit,
and the climate.
You know, in 50 years' time, Brexit will be a weird issue that people go, what? But if the climate has changed radically, then people's lives will neither not be here or it'll be a lot worse.
Brexit will be irrelevant, actually, and I think it's a bit of a red herring in a way.
Absolutely.
And I think they often create distractions.
It isn't, because if you want to influence other countries, then being in a trading bloc of 27 nations, if you got the EU Parliament to agree on the change that was necessary, you'd have quite a lot of oomph. As one nation telling people you don't want live animal exports or whatever, you are a lot weaker as a voice. So it's just, and
we've got to stop
climate issues don't respect boundaries. If you want to save bees or something, then you need some action that goes across boundaries.
It's obviously all collapsible into each other, and it's a very complex
you
issue.
Talking about one thing,
Amazing. Well, Nicola and Alison, I really appreciate the time you've given to me, and I appreciate the fact you've given up your time today to spread the message to the people in the area about the incinerator. So well done, both of you, and you're part of the local Enfield action group for XR. Well done. Really amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I wish you good luck with it, and keep on the fight, the good fight. This is Charlotte at the Mothership Connected. Thanks, ladies.